Well, when we got ready at the campsite, we had started to pack up. We were at Möðrudalur. We had left the road on the 917, which was that really cool road that we took that had been fogged over the night before. So we were looking forward to our next route. You remember this, that we had just been in Iceland for 3 days, so this was the 4th day. And we had been traveling on the road now for about 3 months, and we hadn't done a lot of off-roading. So we were pretty excited about heading off on this route. We were packing up and things were looking good.
So we got up in the morning and I knew today was going to be an exciting day because finally we were going to get to do some off-road riding in Iceland, which I thought about for months ahead of time. So that we were planning on heading to Askja, which is the 80-kilometer ride from the campsite, and taking the F905 and the F910, which are unserviced roads, which are kind of rough, and we knew we had to take 2 water crossings too. So that was going to be new for us, and we just didn't know what to expect, but we were excited about it.
So from Möðrudalur, the campsite, we were now heading to Askja, which was the inactive volcano area. So we were really looking forward to that. In the morning, to get ready to ride on this new route that Andrew had found, it was my birthday. It was actually, I totally forgot about it, but it was my birthday, which was kind of exciting to be out and taking this route on my birthday. And I have to say, so Andrew was really keen about this route, but I was pretty nervous, to be honest. I was pretty nervous about it. Iceland felt so far away, and it felt like we were on this other planet. You know, the landscape was so different. So this was, yeah, this was exciting.
What a great start to the day. The road was just what I'd hoped for.
Yeah, it was wonderful. There were some sandy spots and some, you know, loose gravel, but it was just so much fun. Here you can see the map. We're just showing me the route that we left from Möðrudalur all the way to Askja. So that's the 905, F905 and the F910. And we didn't know what was coming ahead of us.
Here's a fast-flowing river crossing with a bridge across that has a gate.
Now we're headed for our river crossing.
The water's not that cold, really.
You don't have any feeling in your...
Oh, I do. Okay, I need this. Don't touch this. Which way? There's these rocks there. I'm going to avoid that rock.
This is shallower here.
I almost fell there. Sand there. The sand. I thought I was going down.
All right, we want to start talking to you about this route that we were on. This place was amazing.
It really was. The land was unlike anywhere else. I mean, hardened lava flow was so cool to ride on. And the crushed volcanic rock and sand of the road makeup was just, it was so much fun.
It was so much fun.
I loved it.
It was like we were the main characters in a black and white movie.
Except for a couple of spots of blue here and there.
In the sky, yeah. It was amazing, really, to ride through this.
This was the type of terrain that our bikes were designed for and modified to do. With the suspension changes that we made and the choice of tires, the Bridgestone AX41s were just, I mean, the bike was just perfect for this. We went through 2 river crossings. We didn't film the second one.
Because it was the same as the first one, pretty well.
Pretty well was the same. Except the second one was a little bit deeper, but not as wide.
The rivers are high because there was a lot of rain. There had been a lot of rain, so there was a lot of water in the rivers this time around when we were passing through.
Well, the rivers vary hour to hour depending on the rain and the ice melt. So what is like one day could be completely different the second day.
Anyway, they were a lot of fun.
They were.
But they took a lot of time.
The most difficult part on the road to Askja was to deal with the sand on the road. It was, some places it was bottomless. Not like nothing we had ever encountered before. It was so difficult.
We don't have a lot of sand where we live. We have actually no sand where we live. So it was a whole new experience for us. We didn't do too bad in the beginning, but it was exhausting.
Well, we must say we did fall a few times.
I fell 5 times in the sand, and each time I fell, Andrew had to stop his bike, get off his bike, and then walk all the way back to where I was and help me lift my bike up. Because the sand was so deep and so loose, it was really hard to get the bikes up.
I ended up falling one time, and the bike fell on my ankle. And at that point, I didn't know how bad the ankle was. I was stuck underneath the bike, and I couldn't lift the bike off of me.
I stopped my bike and tried to get it up on a kickstand in deep sand, which was hard. But I ran over to where Andrew was, and like Superwoman, I have to lift the back end of the bike off his leg.
I was thankful for that.
Yeah. Anyway, it wasn't too bad. His ankle wasn't too bad. It was definitely injured. And we had to ride quite a long ways before we would get to Askja, as we found out.
We were tired. We just couldn't wait to get to Askja.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was taking forever.
It was a long ride, especially the sand was the killer. When we were at the water crossing, we met another fellow on a huge 1200 loaded with gear.
He was a young guy.
He was a young guy, and he was telling us, oh, when you get to the sand, it's going to be hard. He said, I fell 10 times. So I only fell 5 times, so I felt good about that. It was exhausting, and it was a long ride from there to Askja. When we finally saw Askja coming into the distance, it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and which meant that our ride took us how long, Andrew?
About 6 hours.
About 6 hours, and we expected it to be about half that.
And it was cool out, and it was starting to rain, and it was windy,
Yeah.
and we were so thankful to get to Askja where we have some protection.
So, what an achievement! Holy moly!
But then when we did get there, we have to figure out, okay, so where we're going to put the tent. And the only place to put the tent was around the back of the buildings exposed to the wind. There was no ground. You couldn't put the tent pegs into the ground. You had to use rocks to hold your tent down. At that point, we were thinking, man, this is not going to be fun.
Askja has 2 mountain huts and a campsite, and there's very few vehicles that can manage the route. So they only have an A-frame hut that's reserved for the scientists from NASA, and a new hut that accommodates 30 people bunked together. There's a community kitchen in that hut, but there's a separate bathroom with co-ed showers. The large main common hut is for campers to warm up and eat in, but all the cooking for the campers has to be uncovered outside. In that common hut, there's coffee, tea, beer, some snacks, and more importantly, there's hot waffles that all can be purchased there. The warden takes care of the facility, and there's park rangers on site as well, but they are in a separate hut. The ranger greeted us, and he was pretty excited because he said I was the first woman he'd met that had ridden in on her motorcycle, so he was full of praise. He could see that I was exhausted and that Andrew was injured, so he quickly got us into a hut with a private bed, which was really kind of him. It was my birthday, so he gifted me with a hot waffle topped with whipping cream. He was so kind. We were ready to settle in for the night, thankfully, indoors, not in our tent, and out of the cold. Well, the next day, after a good sleep, we met 2 of our young bunkmates. There was Brooke, who's a volcanologist, and Matt, who's a geologist. They're both from the United States. Anyway, because we were incapacitated, Brooke took us out on a field study to this most amazing location. It was like nothing we had ever seen before. Brooke drove through this deep, jet black volcanic sand to a spot that was amazing to see. We walked over this crest of this mound and we saw, hidden from you initially, an oasis of life, vibrant green with clear, hundreds of year old water coming up from the land to make these pools of water where this green moss-like foliage was growing. It was just stunning. Because the landscape at Askja is so much like the moon, NASA sends its team of astronauts there every year to practice with the lunar rover. In fact, they had just been at Askja 3 days before we arrived.
Ready. Ready. I'm going to let you get ahead of me a bit. work that way. I'm going to go right in where you are in second gear and just go to the right.
I love it. I don't know if you want. No, you better drop him off.
Okay.